Manager. Yes. All right. Here's episode 2. So I enjoyed our conversation on episode 1. I got my man, my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Ed Diaz back.
Only in my mind.
At Kuno Advisors in San Francisco. Ed, I'm super stoked that we started this. I got some great feedback from some of my colleagues about the last episode and what we talked about. And I'm happy to have you on, and especially before I head to the airport.
Yeah, so I hear, man. We're off flying to bigger and better things. But yeah, I too got a lot of great feedback from both other professionals that are ancillary to our businesses, and then also to clients. They just really feel like they don't have to go to Google. They could just watch these to get boots on the ground, real information, right?
Right. There's so many things going on, right? So many. I mean, there's left and right. If I'm listening to Bloomberg, Housing Wire, whatever the case may be, you're just hearing constant different things, right? Inflation, what's happening, housing crisis, recessions. And since we're on the forefront of these issues literally 7 days a week, why not pave the roads and kind of, help some folks understand, during these shifting times. And what's really interesting, I noticed, so I read this article about Zillow, and in 2001, with the whole iBuying flop that we all remember, did you know that they lost $880 million by that program that, for that iBuying program that they had implemented? And to me, all that shows is algorithms don't sell homes. They try to cut in the middle.
Look,
right?
And here's the other part too, is that this whole movement, and by the way, on my side, it's been the fintech. How many, a lot of fintechs have gone out of business too, because what they wanted to do, they want to eliminate the A team, you and I, from this business. But here's the truth. There's so many little nuances and idiosyncrasies in our businesses that you have to be there with a person who does it 24/7 to know quickly, because we're getting this information fast because we're boots on the ground again.
Right.
You can't eliminate that human factor. There's always going to be that human factor, and the need for boots on the ground professionals to give you that kind of information, and not only the information, but also how we digest it, and what does that mean to you, the consumer, when it comes to buying and or refinancing or selling a home, right? All these things are super, super key that you just are not going to get from a robot. Yes, it's great for your latte, even though I got to tell you, I'm wearing my coffee hat today. I'd rather shake hands with my barista, but hey, do you actually need one? Not really. But me personally, because I like the interaction, right? I like to have conversations with my barista. But if that's not your thing, hey, the robot will make you a pretty good cappuccino. But when it comes to real estate,
interesting analogy. I'm so sorry that I jumped in. But I gotta say, I haven't heard that one before. There's a reason why people still go to Starbucks, right? When we can have our own, in-home Mr. Coffee machine, right? Robotic, as you had said.
And if you read the book, by the way, if you haven't read the book, Pour Your Heart Into It, right? Play on words here, the double entendre, which is a great, by the way, business book written by Schultz, the CEO.
Oh, Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks?
Yes.
Okay.
So it really was, Starbucks idea really wasn't about so much the coffee, because they don't have the best coffee out there, right? It was really more about what Schultz calls the third place. So you have your home, you have your work, and then you have your third place, which is a place that you can go socialize, here it comes, without needing to speak. How many of us have been to Starbucks with our laptops, but we like the noise of the people around and your people watching? You don't have to interact with them, but you get to watch them, right? So we've done that a lot. And that's what he calls the third place, which is that need, that craving for human connection, even if you're being silent. And so that's the part that the Italians had correct. Because that idea came from Italy, when he took a trip over there and he saw that baristas were like local, not only legends, but they were local heroes, right? Everybody knew the baristas. And again, it's just that human interaction. I think we're your local baristas for real estate.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones that you come and interact with, and we can share some stories. You can tell us what your dreams and goals are. And then what we do is we create a plan for you that's based on your specific background, situation, and dreams and goals, right? That's kind of hard for a robot, right? It's just a different thing. Plus, let's be honest, buying real estate is a very personal and private matter because, look, most likely me as your mortgage person will probably know more about you financially than probably your family.
Yeah. And I've had folks reach out to me before that have people in the industry that's like an extended family member, like an aunt or an uncle, for example. But just because of that, I'm literally working with a client right now. And he said, my aunt's a real estate agent, but I don't want to work with her because I don't want to know a little too much about, how much money I make, et cetera, et cetera. It's,
Correct.
to each their own. And I thought that was really interesting. And I'm glad for the business, but that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, absolutely. It's a deeply
yeah,
personal thing. And,
sure.
there, and again, as you can have a bunch of houses in a block, and each one of them is going to be a little bit different. So how do we how do you as the real estate professional treat each property? When you're running comps, right?
Right.
You're going deep on analysis for the betterment of your client. How do we position our clients to win, right? And
Yeah.
that requires a specific skill, and it requires a lot of due diligence up front. I tell people, look, use me even for just decision making on your mortgages, because I have what I call the Bob program. I call it the Bob program. It just
Mhm.
stands for Beat It or Bless It.
Beat it
And
or
that,
bless them.
right, my
Uh-huh.
Bob program. So what I
Okay.
say to them is, look, who better to look at another lender's paperwork than me? 21-year eyes, and plus I have the heart of a person who's going to always be honest. That hence the beat it or bless it. If I can beat what they're offering you, great. And if I can't, who better to bless that deal than me, the 21-year, mortgage ninja, right? And so it's not, we're not here to sell anything. We're here to advise and to guide and to do it with authenticity, with transparency, and with a lot of brain trust. Because again, folks, we dedicate 24/7 to this. I
Yeah.
mean, look at the client that you sent me. I was up until 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday to get that pre-approval going, right?
So if I can stop you right there, I just have to say a big shout outs to you, Ed, for doing that. When I chatted with this lady at the open house, I talked you up, and amongst many of the things that I had to, great things about you that I had to say, I told her that I like to partner with lenders who are as motivated about their business as I am. Now, I don't mean to hate on anyone who says, listen, I don't work on weekends. I know a few people that say I don't work on Sundays, and more power to you. That is completely fine. But for me, the business never sleeps. And a lot of times, I'll come across people at an open house who really like the home and want to put an offer in. However, they haven't been pre approved. So I like to align myself with people like you who, folks that are listening, I chatted with Ed after this open house late afternoon, and he was up until 1 a.m. on Saturday to ensure that this client of mine was able to get their pre approval process underway before the seller was reviewing offers, which most likely will be today. And shout outs to you for that, Ed, because I mean
Yeah.
that's so important for me, and the fact that you did that was awesome. Carry on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, and remember that story that I told you that I spoke at a panel, and here was the question, everybody, that they asked me. They said, Ed, is there anybody you can't help? And I instantly
Oh,
said,
yeah.
yes, there's one person. And I said, by the way, that's also the same person you can't help. And by the way, for those of you watching this, it's the same person that you cannot help in your life. So guess who that is? That's the one where you want it more than they do. I
Yeah.
cannot help you if I want that house more than you do.
Hmm.
I cannot help you if I want you to be more successful than you do. It's just
Yeah.
the way it works, right? So for
Human
me,
nature.
I've been all in for 21 plus years now in the mortgage business. And I tell you, there's three types of ways that we earn a living. One is you get a job, right? I call it the just over broke because most
Yeah.
people just don't really like just having a job. And if you're blessed, you go from being getting a job to having a career. And that's a little bump up, right? You get a step up.
Hmm.
You feel like, hey, I'm going somewhere, and you're getting momentum in that field.
Yeah.
Then you like it. And if you really work hard and you're all in and you want it more than everybody else, guess what it becomes? It becomes a calling. It's no longer a job. It's no longer a career. It becomes a calling. I feel like I was called, as cheesy as this sounds, to go in the mortgage business, not because of doing mortgages. So here it comes. It's because of the impact that I have in people's lives and their big dreams. Because one of the biggest dreams is to buy a home. And we all know, Nima, that buying a home in these areas is expensive and it's getting more expensive. So let me drop some knowledge on you. And this is hot off the press.
Love that segue.
Realtor.com just said that from June 4th to June 4th of this year, so from June 4th of last year to June 4th of this year, guess what? Inventory went up by 13%.
Hmm.
However, if you look at prices, if you go to Tampa year over year, guess what? 34% price appreciation.
That's
So
been crazy, right?
it's been
That
insane.
whole market. It seems like
Absolutely.
2020 and 2021, Austin and Miami seemed like they were the hot spots, right? And
They
I'm
were.
the way I see it, it seems like those prices are slowly starting to kind of hit that climax, that plateau.
Yep.
And now
Yep.
Austin and Tampa and those markets are like the new, I'm sorry, my apologies. San Antonio and Tampa are the new markets.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're going to continue to see that. So for those who think, again, and we talked about this before about the whole bubble theory thing, there's not going to be a drop in prices. What is going to happen, and we're starting to see, is a deceleration of that crazy pace that we had
Mhm.
of prices going up by the minute, it seems sometimes, right? So we'll see that decelerate, right? So for example, if you're in a car, maybe you're used to driving 100 miles an hour, now you're going to come back down to about 65.
Yeah.
Does it mean you're going to stop driving? No. So is the price of the property going to go down? No. But the acceleration will slow down for sure for the price. But look, we're still seeing it. We're still seeing prices going up. And now we're starting to see a little bit more inventory. So if you want it bad enough, we all heard about the that one client that I had, which in my opinion was the most purposeful loan I've ever done. Single mother of 3 kids, who the husband
Multiple
just
jobs,
disappeared,
someone,
that she
right?
thought that he was dead, and then finds
Yeah.
out that he has a family in another country. He just disappeared and abandoned them. She still made it happen. She told me when I saw, and I couldn't believe that she had 3 full-time jobs working 100 hours a week.
Wow.
She said, I'll do anything for my children. When she said that, I felt it deep because I'm also the product of a single mother who had the same burning desire that in spite of her circumstances, that she would see to it that I had opportunities, and here I am. So now I'm doing what my mom sacrificed for. I'm paying it forward, and so do you. We both come from very similar backgrounds.
Mhm.
You know, nothing was handed to us, but we want it so badly for our families, but also for your family. So we're not your typical team that just does a transaction. It's not like going to a deli where they're calling out number 42. No, that's not how we operate. We're
Yeah.
relationship driven people who go the extra mile to do the research, to properly advise you, and to let you know that we think it absolutely is possible, but it might not come packaged in the way you think. So, for example, you might need a co borrower. You might need to come down a little bit in price. You might need maybe to buy a duplex or a triplex as opposed to buying a single family residence to leverage the rents. But we're going to be those folks who are going to give you
Yeah.
some creative solutions because you know what? We care.
Or let's just say if you're anticipating on staying in the property for less than 10 years, is there a real big reason for you to
Adjustable
get a
rate
30-year
mortgage.
fix, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm going to custom tailor the programs that I will advise you. Matter of fact, let me give you an example. This is hot off the press. It just happened literally 12, 15 minutes prior to jumping on the Zoom. I have a
Mhm.
client who self-employed, been in a contractor for many, many years. Matter of fact, 31 years to be exact. And you know what? He had declining income this year. So his profit and loss statement shows a 71% decline. So guess what? Not going to get a mortgage.
Yeah.
So I decided, you know what? Let's switch. We're going to switch gears. I have a special program called the DSCR, which stands for Debt Service Coverage Ratio, which as long as the payment on that mortgage, the total payment is 75 to 100% of the rents he collects, then I can get him a loan, right? So
Wow.
let me back up.
Being
And it's
creative.
actually as long as the rents, I'm sorry, I inverted it. As long as the rents are 75 to 100% coverage of the actual mortgage payment, you can get that loan. And so we're switching gears. It's a little bit more expensive, but as I told him, look, if you find a property, don't miss out on it. I'll refinance you later once your income comes back. And by then you have already accumulated what, $150,000 of equity,
Yeah.
right? So look, we don't always get what we want, and things don't always happen the way we prepackage them, right?
Yeah.
But it
And I
doesn't mean
mean,
you can't do it.
there's some people that want to go and work with a lender, let's just say through their bank, because they say, oh, it's convenient, right? I can just, jump in there. They have access to all my accounts. I get this preferred rate. As I mentioned, I initially had this idea as well when I was buying my first home. I thought the same way. And then, boy, did I realize, especially with my self-employed background, of how much of a mistake I made going that route. I think guys like you, it's like you guys are like an architect in a way to me. It's like, you can take this and you're just like molding it and just, you know what I'm saying? Like in a little, like you see those ESPN control centers, right? Like you got all of these different gadgets at your disposal to help your client instead of pushing one or two products that an institutional lender might be doing, right?
Yeah, part of my job, and thank you for the segue, part of my job here is to constantly be looking for new lenders and
Mm-hmm.
investors who have maybe some creative programs, right? Like maybe a bank statement program if you're self-employed, or maybe somebody who has a lot of assets, but they don't have a lot of income because maybe
Uh-huh.
they're a trust fund person, right?
Yeah.
I could do that deal as well. But again, these are things that we go out to seek. Why? Because we want it so bad, right? It goes back to that thing. You want it bad enough. And that's where we, the A team, come together to provide you solutions, right? Of
Yeah.
what's going on. Because look, the times are getting tougher. Let's not sugarcoat this. Inflation is at a 41-year high. CPI numbers just came out.
What are
We're
we
at an
at?
8,
8.6%?
8.6. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
8.6%, the highest in 41 years, right? The 10-year treasury this morning woke up and the 10-year treasury is at like almost 3.4%. It's over a 70 basis point rise in the last, what, 10 days.
No,
It's
no,
been
Ed,
dramatic.
if I could have you please unpack that.
Yeah,
Like,
so the
because
10
we
years, so
talk, you and I, we just sit
yeah,
there and we
yeah,
talk,
yeah, that's
right?
true. Yeah, it's
Yeah. So
true.
what would that mean for consumers?
Yeah, so how that equates for consumers is that now rates on a conventional 30-year is going to go into the mid fives. And that's you having really great credit scores, 760 and above kind of thing, and putting a good, healthy down payment, right? And the type of property that you're buying, because
Yeah.
believe it or not, rates are actually better for single family residences than they are for condos, as
And
an
why is
example,
that? Why is that?
because condos are a greater risk than the single family residence because you have more inhabitants, more things can go wrong, more moving parts. The HOA, we don't know if the HOA, the association, homeowner association, is ran properly. Do they have enough
Oh,
reserves? What concentration of investors,
they can go into
meaning how many
litigation.
people are renting versus owning in that
Hmm,
place,
I see.
right? Is
Yeah.
there commercial downstairs, right? There's a whole bunch of moving parts that affect your rate. And by the way, all those little moving parts are called LLPAs, loan level pricing adjustments.
Ella.
Nobody talks about this, but I'm telling you right now, there's certain things. And if I may, I'd actually like to share a little bit of what those look like on the rate
Yeah.
sheet so that everybody gets a really good idea of what this looks like really quick. Let me know when I'm able to
Absolutely.
share.
Go for it.
Awesome. So let's go here. Let's look at, here we go. If you look here, these are called LLPAs, loan level pricing adjustments. These are
Mhm.
adjustments based on risk that the lenders and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have determined is risk. Not what you as a consumer think is risk, is what they think is risk. Why? Because they're
Interesting.
the ones giving you the money. So they are the ones, whoever writes the check writes the rules, right? So these are loan level pricing adjustments. So for example, based on a grid of how much down payment or your what's called the LTV, the loan to value, and your credit scores is how much it might cost you. So for example, if your credit score is greater than or equal to 740 and you put anywhere from 30, let's just call it 40 or 30 to 40% down, it's going to cost you 0.25%. Now, if your scores go down, look at this. If you're at a 620 to 639 and you're putting 30 to 40% down, it's going to cost you 1.5 points to the pricing on your rate. That's a ton. So this is the reason why when somebody comes into me and has low credit scores, I want to find out why. I want to look at that credit report and give them some advice as to how to clean it up and what to fix, as opposed to, remember, transaction oriented people in our business who just treat it like it's, a deli. Number 43, right? They're just going through numbers, right?
Yeah.
We don't do that. We stop, look at what are the barriers, and how to remove these barriers. In this case, somebody with a 620 has some derogatories on their credit. There's no doubt about it. So let's address them. Let me show them how to fix it, because I'm an expert at that. And I position you so that way you can come back up here and get the best rate. Now, look at this. If you're buying a manufactured home, look at all the adjustments here. There's a half a point. It can be just for being a manufactured home. If it's an investment property, look at this. Depending on how much money you put down is going to be the adjustments, right? So all these things are called loan level pricing adjustments. This is just an example, but everybody has it, and it's based on your profile. So when I go looking for rates, it's going to show me all the rates available, because folks, on any given day, you have between 10 and 23 different interest rate options as an average. Okay. So it's not what is your rate, it's rates. It's plural. There's many, many different rates that you can get. It's not just let me see if I can find it, and then I'll share again. It's not just, oh, it's 5.25 or it's 5.5. No. You can also pay points to buy down that rate. And that will depend on how you answer my question of how long do you think you're going to keep this property? Because if you're not going to keep the property a long time, number one, why are you getting a 30? And number two, why are you going to pay points? You're not going to be able to make up that cost within that period of time. So for example, you tell me, I'm going to live in this property for about 5 years at the max, Ed, because then I'm relocating up to Eugene, Oregon, because I'm working with Google and I'm looking to just relocate up there to their office up there. I'm not going to recommend a 30-year. I'm going to recommend a 7-year to give you an extra 2 years just in case that gets right.
Yeah.
Give you a little bit of a delta there. And two is, I'm not going to recommend you paying points, because you're not going to recover it in enough time in the 7 years that you're going to pay the points, right?
Right.
But the opposite might be the case, where I do recommend a 30-year, and I do recommend paying points based on you telling me, you know what, they're going to bury me in this house. I'm living here the rest of my life. Then you're going to want to secure the absolute lowest rates, and you might want to pay some points because you're going to recover it in the 15 years or even 10 years, but you're going to live there for 30. If that makes any sense.
I'd love for you to give an example, if you have it in front of you, or if you can, just like what the difference would be. Like, let's just say for a borrower today, high level overview, right? Like on a 5-year ARM, 7, 10, or maybe
Yeah, let's do
30
something
year.
simple. Yeah, let's do something simple. So let's say a $500,000 loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that the rate, without paying any points. And by the way, folks, the points are not a lender fee. That fee is paid to the markets as a premium for you getting a lower rate. We're paying the markets to give us a lower rate. It's much like if you go buy a car, right? And you want leather versus not leather, you're going to pay a premium, right? It's the same thing. Fabric versus leather. Fabric's cheaper. You get that for free. But if you want leather upgrade, you got to pay premium, right? That's the analogy for points here.
I see.
Points are only used to buy down the rate. It's a premium you pay for the rate. So for example, in this case, $500,000 loan, at 0 points, you're at 5.25, let's call it, right? But let's say, so at let's do some math here. Okay. Let's do some math real quick. So at $500,000 loan, okay, at we said it's 5.25%, right?
Mhm.
0 points. Okay. So we know that at, let's call it, let's say at 4.75 for the sake of conversation, it's going to cost you 1 point. By the way, 1 point is equal to 1% of the loan amount. What's that? $5,000, right? 1% of
Right.
500,000 is 5K.
Mhm.
So now let's go here. At 5.25, your principal and interest payment is $27.61 a month. Okay. At 4.75, your payment is $26.08. Okay. So now you take 27.61 minus 26.08, and the difference is $153 a month. So
Mhm.
here's what you do. You take $5,000, the cost, okay, 5,000 divided by the difference in payment, $153, and that gives you 32.68 months. In other words, 33 months. Let's just call it 3 years, okay? It's going
Mhm.
to take you
Okay.
3 years to recover the 5,000. If you told me, Ed, I'm going to be here for 7 or more years, then it makes sense because it's going to take you 3 years to recoup. And then the rest of the time, it's all savings, pure net savings in your
Mhm.
month. But if you told me, Ed, I'm relocating in a year, I just want to get I want to do a equity grab. I want to get as much equity in a year, sell this property, and then go buy in Eugene, Oregon. I would say, do not pay points because it's going to take you 3 years to recover
Yeah.
the $5,000. Is that making sense, folks? And I
Right.
could do a custom one for every single person watching this. Again, the strategy matters. It counts a ton. If nobody's talking to you about these options, you're just basically throwing your money up in the wind. You don't know what you're doing because
Yeah.
nobody's giving you insight of all these options.
Yeah, and it
And
seems like
quite
there's a lot
frankly,
of options.
we, the industry, are to blame. We don't do a lot of education as an industry. What we do is we commoditize. And that's why people say, well, what's your rate? What if I told you, well, there's 23 different options? You'd be like, what? The other 10 guys I talked to didn't say that, right?
Right.
This is how we win. It's by making informed and intelligent decisions.
Got to have a good money man. You know what I
Absolutely. You know,
mean?
that's my background, 36 years, right? I was a
Yeah. Yeah.
financial
Yeah.
advisor, money manager before this. So, and I've done commercial banking. So I've done a lot. I have a very robust background. And to me, it's like, how do I position you the best financially? Help
Yeah.
you make great financial decisions around buying a home.
Hey, so speaking of that background of yours, right? The last time we had lunch when we were trying to secure our spot for the next event, right? We had a nice lunch and we caught up and
Yeah.
you shared a nice story with me. We both like the movie Pursuit of Happiness. And you told me about an interesting thing that you have on your finger. And I'd love for you to share that story.
Yeah, this was interesting. So I met the guy, Carver, I think, so Gardner. I'm sorry, Gardner. What's his last name? Mr. Gardner. He was the actual person in the story. And so when
Smith, yeah.
I, uh, I went up to him to say hello, and the first thing I asked him, he said, besides, you know, after saying hello, I said, "Can I see your finger?" And he looked at me and he smiled because he knew exactly. The guy's so sharp and so quick. He knew exactly why I was asking. He goes, "Oh, so you were in the industry, huh?" I said, "Yeah." So if you look at my finger, folks, let's see if you can see it. It's kind of difficult. You see, it
Yeah.
actually goes to the side.
It's inverted a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's twisted a little bit because I was doing I was dialing 400 calls a day. And so when you do that for a long time, for some reason the finger
Yeah.
just twists. He has the same exact thing. His finger goes towards the right, just like mine does.
Man, that's dialing for dollars, right?
Dialing for
See the
dollars.
movie
And
Boiler
again, you know what?
Room.
When you want it bad enough, that's what happens. You'll do 400 calls a day, right?
Yeah, man, absolutely. So, they talk about products and services, right, with the economy. And it seemed like when we were locked down earlier during the onset of the pandemic, there was a lot more products being purchased, right? People were buying those Peloton bikes. People were buying the car that they always wanted, stimulus checks left and right, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it seems like where we are today, a lot of people have shifted more towards services that were once upon a time, unfortunately, not available to a lot of people during the pandemic, namely, let's say hair appointments, traveling, restaurants, concerts, stuff like that. Are you seeing the same thing going on?
100%. And they're spending a ton of money in those areas. Hence, by the way, the fact that we have inflation. It's
Ah,
happening a lot. A lot of these services now all of a sudden have boomed, right? And so the money's going there, causing those services to go up in prices. And here we go, inflation at a 41-year high. And look, let me also mince words here. The truth is we have a supply chain problem just with products as well. So that's happening. And look at gas, how it's going through the roof. So all these things are happening, which is why the Fed is going to, by the way, June 15th, coming up in 2 days, another 50 to 75 basis points is what they're predicting.
yeah,
The Fed has to raise rates. Why? Because the higher the rate, the less you want to spend because things get more expensive. And what that does, it drops prices because there's less demand. That's how that whole thing works. And so
yeah,
once the braking system, meaning higher rates, gets clamped onto inflation, then what ends up happening is that we end up taming inflation and then rates start to go down. Now, I've said this before, and I'm just going to say it again. I do believe we're going to go into a recession. I didn't say we're going over the cliff. I think it's going to be somewhat of a mild recession, but we are.
yeah.
And recessions have a tendency to bring lower rates. Now, when that happens, that's the part of the crystal ball I don't have. But I think, look, don't jump off a bridge. Be strategic, align yourself with the proper people, and make some informed decisions. Because remember 2008? Remember when we fell off a cliff, right? Think about this. What if you were the person who bought property in 2008? Where would those properties be now in price? How would your portfolio be looking? How would your net worth be looking right now? I
Probably
mean, you know the answer to
3x.
that, Nima.
Yeah, probably 3x. I know because my father was one of those people. So I've seen how much those prices have gone up. I remember a time during the Great Recession when one of his rental properties, I believe, was worth probably around $650,000 in Santa Clara. And that same property now is probably worth 1.8 or 1.9.
Yeah,
And all
that's
he's really done is kept it, and he's kept paying the mortgage. It's just taking the risk to jump in there as a property owner, right? And the market's definitely taken care of him for that. He's definitely been rewarded, which we have to, stop and remember that these people do take risks, right? We on our last conversation, we chatted about how everyone's paying a mortgage. Are you paying yours or somebody else's?
for
And
your
he's a big
landlords.
believer
Yeah,
of this type of
everybody's paying a
mindset,
mortgage.
you
That's
know?
absolutely right. And
Yeah,
look, it's the old no pain, no gain model, right? Uh, you have to take what I call calculated risk, which means you don't bet the farm, but you do have to take some risk. I mean, here's the truth. You've already taken risks in your life. Pause for a second and think about all the things that you've done to get to where you're at. How about that job? Did you not take the risk of maybe not getting it? So guess what? You went to an interview. You didn't know you were going to get it by just showing up, right? How about your spouse? You didn't know he or she was going to say yes to the
yeah,
date and to marriage, but you took the risk. I mean, it shows up in little places, but it also shows up in big places. What happens if you decided to keep taking risks, right?
yeah,
Calculated. Where would you be?
right, right. But at the same time, fortune favors the bold, right? You and I both left careers. Now, granted, you kind of stayed in line with the same career, and we went and started our own shop. I know I did that when I left Square, right? I was working on Jack Dorsey's business development team and leaving that cushy, salary with all those perks and, being in the middle of downtown San Francisco, which was awesome for me. I had a great time. And moving down to, suburbia and essentially going to business for myself. That's a risk, right? Buying a home 2 months into the pandemic, that was a risk, right?
Huge.
And
Yep.
having a lot of friends who are telling you, what are you doing? You're crazy. Prices are going to drop. You're buying at the top of you're buying at the peak of the housing prices. That armchair quarterback shows that they were absolutely wrong. And again, I took a risk, and I'm grateful that I was rewarded for this. Now, not it doesn't always work that way, but even dialing that back, a lot of us do not look at housing like the stock market, right? Housing is is shelter. You can write it off, right? You can pass it on. It's not like
And you
stuff.
live in it.
And you live in it. That's right. Thank you. You have a roof over your head. We don't look at it that way, right? Oh, let's see. Oh, let me just calculate if I'm going to be in this property for 30 years. What is my yield? What's my network? And then I'm going to sell. Most people don't do things like that.
That's true. I mean, look, I'm gonna give you an example of what Hustle 2.0 looks like. Thomas Edison. It took him a
uh,
1,000 tries before he had the light bulb patent. 1,000. How many people would give up at 10 times?
yeah.
This guy kept going. 100. Nope. I'm going to keep going. 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 1,000. I mean, I honestly don't know anybody, including me, who would have tried 1,000 times. But think about this: you wouldn't have the light bulbs you have unless he did that. How did that change the world? I mean, we were
Mhm.
candles, right? So here we are, thanks to his Hustle 2.0. And I think, again, you have to take some risk. But what's nice about the risks that we take in this country, that most of it is first world problems.
Yeah.
It's and to borrow from Gary Vaynerchuk, the great godfather of social media, I call him. The reality is that without failures, there are no successes.
Hmm.
Do not be afraid to fail. Matter of fact, failure to me has been my university. It's taught me more lessons than formal schooling has ever taught me. No doubt about it.
Resilience, right? That's what
Well, it
resilience is all
teaches us a
about.
lot of stuff, what to do, what not
Yeah.
to do. It
Hmm.
also teaches us about ourselves. What are we really made out of? Our pain tolerance, our tolerance, or an ability to rebound, get back on the horse, our ability to learn from those failures, our ability to grow from those failures, right? I would say again, without failures, there are no successes.
Yeah. It's like they say, like, hey, you got to live in the valleys before you can enjoy the peaks, right? Hustle
Couldn't
hard.
agree more. Couldn't
Yeah,
agree
man.
more.
Hey, have you heard of fractional ownership at Diaz?
I have. Yeah.
There's this company, and I wanted to chat about this with you because they were on a podcast that I listened to. So this company is called Picasso, right?
Yeah.
And what they do is it's almost like the secondary home market, right? Where instead of like buying a vacation home that you, let's say you got an Airbnb, or you got to just let it sit and collect dust, you can have a fractional ownership with other business folks just like yourself. And their argument is that they're not affecting the housing crisis in any way, or like the supply issue, because that these properties are generally more on the luxury side, think 2 million and higher. So they're saying that, oh, like, for first time home buyers and the ordinary folks, we're not really affecting them. They're going out to Del Mar and, outside of San Diego, for example, and you're buying a beach house with 7 other folks, and you're kind of cut it up into fractional ownership like you would with a timeshare. And I thought that
Exactly.
that was an interesting business model.
Yeah, I think the model works as real estate is getting more and more expensive, even on the higher end.
Mhm.
I mean, and you're not going to use it a ton. You're just going to use it every once in a while, but you want something that's a little bit more private than the cattle call, timeshare. I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
You own a piece of that and then you negotiate calendar times of usage with the other owners. But again, it's not a pool of hundreds. It's a pool of maybe 5 or 6 people buying one property. Look, and if they're your friends, you can go in with friends on a property in Del Mar that you can use twice, 4 times, 5 times a year, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you can all benefit from that. And you know each other, and you have integrity, and they're not going to trash the place. So they're going to keep it nice. Dude, it's a win-win situation. You don't have to fork up all that money for a
Right.
second home or something, or a vacation home. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's sort of like a TIC for second and vacation homes, right?
Yeah. Right.
I love it.
Right.
I personally think it's a great idea.
I'm curious to see how they do. I mean, I've never worked with I'm sorry, condominiums. I've never worked with timeshares before, so I don't know how it goes about, like, with the deed, for example. And we know, getting into title. By the way, we should interview a title rep soon. But tenants in common, for example, right, and how you vest with the property. I don't know how that shows up, with 8 other people, being in different
I'm sure it's
locations.
got to be somewhat of a TIC, right?
Yeah,
It's got
but
to
I
be a
thought that was
tenancy
a
in
really
common arrangement. Yeah, they
okay.
all go on the same deed. They get a TIC loan or a fractional
Yeah.
TIC loan and take it from there. But I think it's a great idea. I also think it's a great idea to partner up with other trusted people to buy even your first home. So for example, let's say you can't afford a single family residence. I'm sure you're not the only one in that situation. Look, there's a lot of people who can't, right? So maybe you
Yeah.
have friends that you didn't know are in the same situation. Go buy a duplex, right? Watch it
Mhm.
rise, sell it. Each goes their own way with their equity that cost them nothing because they slept in the place and got tax write-offs while they're at it. And then you individually go buy single family residences, right?
Yeah. House
We have
hacking.
this notion that we have to hit home runs every time we go to bat. No, get on base. Get on base. Forget about the home runs. Get
Right.
on base. Let's get you in and scoring, right? But first, get on base.
This reminds me of the book, The Compound Effect, right? It just adds up over
There it
time,
is.
right? It just adds up.
Totally. Look, everything in life is about momentum.
Uh-huh.
That compounding effect is so key.
Hmm.
Because, and by the way, you hit on something that's very, very important that we haven't talked about, which is our approach that Nima and I have with you, our clients. If it cannot happen right now, we're going to be honest and tell you, but we're also going to give you some homework so that by tomorrow you can. And of course, tomorrow being short to medium term, right? Metaphor here. But we're going to help you win. But
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to do a little additional things that we're going to point out so that you can do it. We're not going to abandon you. This isn't about, oh, we got to make short term money or we don't want to talk to you. No, that's not the way we roll. We are long term, long game, relationship focused professionals who will do everything in our realm, legal and ethical,
Hmm.
to help you win. That's
Yeah.
what we do. So,
Even with the
isn't
higher
it good to
rates,
find out?
right?
What's that?
Even I was going to say, even with these higher rates, right?
Even with the
We're here
higher
to
rates.
navigate what that means to your purchasing power, how we can
Absolutely.
shift to get you the right thing, right? And Ed, I love to smash on those bubble bros. I love to make fun of them. I'm honest. I just like
Yeah.
it because
Yeah.
I think what bothers me most is the confidence or faux confidence that they have when I have these debates with them. And I've been engaging with them since 2019, and they've been wrong on 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10
Yeah.
ish. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
let's remember that higher rates, right? What people are seeing in the market today, higher rates. What is that going to affect first? Boots on the ground on the real estate side. I see it with the days on the market. Before we'd stick a sign for the home, and on Wednesday, we'd put it on the market. On Thursday, we'd take offers on Tuesday when the market was super, super hot. Well, now we're seeing the property stay a little bit longer on the market, right? Let's say 21 days from 5 to 6 days, right? I feel like that's usually what we see first. Days on the market start to increase. There's nobody going and doing panic selling. Get off of Reddit. Like those meme stocks. People are like, oh my God, my Bitcoin is dropping. Sell, 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 sell. No one does that with their homes. You retards. I'm sorry. Nobody does that. Nobody's like, oh my God, like the rates are going up. I live in this home. I own this home. Let me go and sell it for 20% undervalue because panic selling. And then
Okay.
be on the street and figure out my next housing situation. Tell me who does that.
Well,
Nobody.
okay. So let me be succinct about this one. Let me grab this
Yeah,
baton for a second.
please go.
All right. So I always ask this because I have the same people call me every day or every year. I
Uh-huh.
had one guy called me 13 years in a row, no joke, every year. And I still think prices are going to crash and I should just stay renting. Tell me otherwise. So I always ask him the same question. Okay, before I do that, do me a favor. How much money have you made passively in the last year? And how many tax write-offs did you get off of that? The answer is always zero. Because here's the part that people don't talk about. There's an opportunity cost to everything, including waiting. So let me show you, folks. Let's do a cost of waiting analysis right now. Okay, so
Let's see.
assuming a $1.2 million property, okay,
Mhm.
you're, and in this, what it gives you is that if you wait 6 months, wait a year, wait 2 years, and notice how the price is going up, okay, and not by as much as normal has been, but also if you notice if the rate goes up, and these are rates, right, kind of where we're at right now. If
Mhm.
you look at this, okay, here we go. If you wait a year, costs you 122,000. You wait 2 years, 227,000. You wait 3 years, $344,000. That's my question. How much money have you made passively? This is called equity, folks. That you don't work, you don't punch in and punch out at a job for. This is passive money. The property is actually paying you this. And this is not even adjusted for tax write-offs, which out here, up to $10,000 of property taxes deductible and up to $750,000 of mortgage interest, right, at your tax bracket, right? We're talking about a lot of money.
I noticed up there you had mentioned passive and you had mentioned things that you can write off. The first thing that came to my mind when you said that is the stock market, right? Because even these, cushy tech stocks over the pandemic, you can't write off those earnings.
No,
right?
No, and you don't live in them, by the way. They don't give you shelter, right? So, I mean, the numbers don't lie, folks. And by the way, I can do one of these for you as well. I could do a custom one.
That's cool.
I also have a great rent to own that shows, does it make sense to rent or to own? And look, again, we're authentic. Homeownership isn't for everybody. For some of you who have very low rent, maybe it does make sense for you to keep it. My buddy Ian pays what, $500 a month. He's paid that same rent since 1979 in San Francisco. Yeah, he's not going to own a home. He's just not, and that's okay, right? Because he's not going to get $500. That ain't going to happen, right? And for from what he can afford, he would have to relocate out of San Francisco. He's been here since '79. Is that going to happen? Let's be realistic. No, he has everybody here. His business is here. He doesn't want to, and for him, we don't even have this conversation. It's okay, right? But know your numbers. These are some of the tools that we provide for you to help you make, again, intelligent financial decisions. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, hey, on that note, Ed, it's always a pleasure jumping on with you.
Always, man.
I appreciate
I get excited to do these because education, I'm a closet teacher, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're out there just trying to educate the public and just try to provide, all the insight that we've learned over the years, just so they can navigate those roads, right? Like we had initially said, and just make the best decisions on their own, right? And folks, if you have any questions for us, please reach out to us. Our information is in the show notes. We rely on people like you folks to provide these questions for us so we can hop on next Monday and drop some more knowledge. And we can
absolutely. And if you're watching this from YouTube, everybody, please don't forget to subscribe, to share, and also hit the notification bell so that way you get pinged every single time we drop one of these. The other thing too is let us know if you're interested, because we're going to start to do some face-to-face events that we're super excited that we're curating with Nima right now. Let us know if you want to get on that very VIP. It's going to be a small list of people because we don't want to have tons of people, because let's be honest, we're still in COVID. But if you want to attend these events, please let us know, because they're going to be unique and they're going to be super on point and fun.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one at Santana Roma, man. I'm not going to spill too much about it, but I'm excited for it.
Me
and
too.
On that note, Ed Diaz, Kuno Advisors, I appreciate you, my man.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Stay productive, and I'm going to go hop on that plane to Austin.
All right, man. Happy and safe travels.
Thank you.